Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing another kind of countdown recap. This one is going to be my top 5 episodes of the classic show Roswell. It feels really odd saying that's a classic considering it, to me it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was actually in 1999, so it's been a while. This aired on the WB and then eventually UPN. It started in 1999 and it's actually still streaming on Hulu. You can also still buy the DVDs. So it's still out there for people, and I feel like a lot of people may be wanting to check it out now that the Roswell, New Mexico reboot is on the CW, and people seem to be liking that. So this is just a little something I thought was fun. Now, the Roswell, New Mexico show, I really like it. I'm enjoying it, but it will never be classic Roswell to me. That show was just it was just classic to me. It's, it's irreplaceable, as was a lot of those WB shows back then. That's just, it's something from my teenage years, and I just, I can't compare the two shows. They're just, they're different. But anyways, these are just my top 5 episodes. I could have done top 10, but honestly, I felt like it was better to kind of condense it for anybody just kind of wanting to get a feel of what the show is like. So this is just the 5. Like I said, they're in no particular order, as far as chronologically. So there is jumping around and there will be spoilers. But these, like I said, this is just my opinion on them. So to start it off with, I'm going to go with my number 5 video, which is going to be the first episode, the pilot episode. Now, a lot of times, I think pilot episodes, they have to be really strong to get your attention, but at the same time, when you go back and watch the pilot as opposed to other episodes, you don't think the pilot's just that great, or it's too much setup, and it just doesn't work for you as well. But the original pilot episode of Roswell, to me, was just kind of a little masterpiece. Like, it's kind of its own little mini movie to some degree. I just watched it yesterday just to kind of recap everything and to kind of get, to kind of watch it again and experience it. And I've watched it several times over the years, but it just has everything I'm looking for. So in the pilot episode of the show, we meet Liz Parker, and she learns that Max Evans, a classmate, and he's actually, she is at the Crashdown Cafe where she works at, and she gets shot, and Max ends up saving her life. Turns out that he is an alien, and, she doesn't just, think that this is a random occurrence. She tries to find out more about him. She's a smart character. She doesn't just accept it for what it is. She has questions. So after saving Liz's life, it raises suspicion with the Sheriff Valenti. And then Liz learns where Max comes from, and she's kind of sworn to secrecy. But she does end up telling her friend Maria, because Maria keeps asking questions. And so now Max, his sister Isabel, and their friend Michael kind of put their lives in the humans' hands to safeguard their secret. So like I said, it's just kind of a mini movie in and of itself. It sets up the show beautifully. The acting is spot on. The chemistry between Liz and Max, it's right there from the beginning. And it was just, to me, it's like lightning in a bottle. Their chemistry is the one that I compare pretty much everybody else in television to, because they just have that it factor for me. So like I said, it's just a really good opening to the series, and I think after you watch that, you were instantly wanting to see more. Now for my number 4 pick, I have chosen the episode from season 1 called HEATWAVE, which was actually the 9th episode of the series. This one is just kind of a lot of fun. I thought there is a weird heat wave that is sweeping the town, and everybody's emotions are heightened. There's all kinds of things going on, and this is actually the first episode in which Max and Liz actually kiss, and so it's kind of iconic in their relationship. Now on Hulu or the DVDs, the music has been changed in that scene because they didn't really have the whole streaming issue at the time, so the licensing for the songs, they had to replace a lot of them. So that definitely changes the ending scene for me just a little bit, because that Gomez song that they played in the background was just kind of, it's a lot of these shows, the music to them is something I really vividly remember. So when they've replaced the music in them, it's just not the same. But if you've never seen it before, then it's probably not going to bother you. They do replace it with some generic music, but it is what it is. But like I said, this episode is just really fun. This is kind of the one where Michael and Maria really start to heat up. And there's a really weird scene with them like making out, and Liz is kind of watching. It's a little odd now that I rewatch it. At the time, I don't guess I thought it was, but watching it now, it was a little weird. But so you got that going on. You also have, they're not really as trusting of Alex at this point. So Isabel kind of enters into one of his dreams, and she sees this really interesting scene with him. I really liked it because I liked Alex and Isabel. And this scene, I like the song that was playing it, and thankfully they kept the same music, so that was really good. And of course, the chemistry in this between Max and Liz is just very intense. And like I said, that very ending scene where they finally kiss at the time was just everything. Now for number 3, we're going to skip ahead into season 2, which season 2, I really liked it, but it is, season 1 to me is ultimately the best one, but season 2 had a lot of good episodes. This one is a bit controversial, I think, in the sense of this was the final episode that was actually on the WB, and after this, the show really changes. None of season 3 will be on this list for me, just because while I did appreciate that it got picked up and we got another season of it, they just really changed the tone of the show in season 3. I don't think they really knew what to do with it. But season 2's finale, The Departure, was a really good episode, as it tied up a lot of loose ends with it. So you've basically got Max, Isabel, Michael, and Tess, and they're going to be going back to their home planet because Tess is pregnant with Max's child, and the child cannot be in that environment. So they found a way to travel back to their home planet, and they basically have 24 hours to make their amends, say their goodbyes and everything. And so it gets kind of emotional from there. This is the one where Michael and Maria finally slept together and finally said their I love yous. There was also a really good scene where Michael tells her that, the whole time he was holding back, and that's why she couldn't see him. But he has always seen her, and this is where he lets her see his memories and everything. And it was a really sweet scene, and I know that the fans of Michael and Maria just really loved this scene altogether. You've also got Max still trying to come to terms with leaving Liz. This whole season they've been apart, and for several reasons, some we'll get into later. But this one, they're still trying to find out who killed Alex. And that was a big part at the end of season 2. I wasn't really happy that they killed off Alex, but I don't think really anybody was. So this is the one where they're trying to figure out what exactly happened before he has to leave. So he and Liz team up to try and find out what's going on. They think they found the killer. It turns out it's not. And then when they're on their way home, there's a really great scene where Max tells Liz everything about what's going on with Tess, and he says goodbye to Liz, and it's just a really emotional scene. The acting between these two in this is really just stellar. So now we get to some of the parts of it that I'm not a big fan of, and that's the fact that they reveal that Tess was actually the person who killed Alex, though it wasn't intentional, but she was using him. She was mind warping him. She had done that to Kyle. She'd done that to Maria's mother at one point, and this is all revealed in this episode. But again, I always felt like making Tess the killer was kind of an easy cop-out. The general fans did not like Tess. They, because she was, coming in between Max and Liz, and I get that, but at the same time, I liked the character of Tess, and they really just turned her into just a horrible villain at this point. They made her pretty irredeemable, even though she does eventually come back in an episode in season 3. The damage had already been done. Basically, the whole season, the build-up between... They had Tess kind of becoming part of the Valenti family. That's pretty much ruined, and I hated that because I liked those three becoming kind of a family, even though originally they had a kind of a weird vibe between Kyle and Tess that really didn't go anywhere, but, this kind of spoils all that. Now, in this episode, though, you do get a lot of great scenes. You have Isabel, who's struggling with leaving behind everything. You've got Michael, who's struggling with leaving Maria. Liz thinking that, Max is leaving her forever. And there was also a really good scene in that between Isabel and Alex, although, he's kind of a figment of her imagination, and she's talking to him. I really liked this scene. They did a couple of these after Alex died. It was just kind of Isabel's memories, but those scenes were just so sad. But the acting was so good in it, and I really liked it. One thing that's kind of a small thing, but I do remember when I watched it again this morning, I remember how much I liked it, was the episodes, the last couple of episodes of the second season always started out with Maria kind of recapping everything. And this one has that too. And I just kind of liked that. I thought it was kind of creative, and I thought it was cute. Now, the ending of it, they end up staying because everything comes to light about Tess. Now, Tess does leave, and basically the season at that point is, where do we go from here? And of course that ends up into season 3, which has its ups and downs. So anyways, that's basically the premise of the departure. But at the time, I really enjoyed it, and I was very, interested in seeing where the series was going to go. So I really liked this episode. The number 2 episode of this is going to be season 1's episode number 16, which was called Sexual Healing. Now, this one is just kind of a lot of fan service, I think. It's a good episode, and it does have a point, but at the same time, it's just kind of one of these episodes that I find is for the fans out there. This is basically, the premise of it is that Max and Liz, every time they touch, every time they kiss, basically every time they begin to be intimate, he and she are both having visions of each other. It kind of is leading to answering some questions about where Max and all of them came from. And, Liz is seeing the crash site when she's kissing him. And so, of course, to ensure this, they're getting closer and closer. And, like I said, the chemistry between them is just so intense. And even watching it just now, a lot of shows that I watched when I was younger, I watch them now and I'm not as into them. Or couples that I liked, I'm not seeing the chemistry, and I chalk that up to just being young and thinking it was great. But, with Max and Liz, I still watch it. Jason and Shuri just have amazing chemistry between each other. Just the way they look at each other, every touch, everything is just on fire. And this episode really has a lot of that in it. You also have a really funny storyline with Michael and Maria, and they're kind of trying to mimic what's going on between Max and Liz. So they start hooking up and, making out in all these weird places around town. And it's pretty much, Maria's wanting to do this to be closer to him, to be back with him, and so she starts faking her visions, and I just thought it was hilarious. And of course he's telling her stuff too, but it turns out he's actually seeing this. At first you think he's making it up too, and they're just using this as an excuse to hook up, but he actually tells her at the end that he did see all this stuff. But it's just a funny episode. Like I said, you've got Maria, who's just so desperate for him, and so she's faking all of this stuff. And it was just very funny. You also have Alex, who offers himself to Isabel for research purposes. And then at the end of it, they do have a sweet little kiss. And I just thought that was a funny storyline as well, just because I really liked them as a couple. And again, this episode is just fun. It's just one that you rewatch with a smile. And it's like I said, I think it's there for the fans more than anything. The number 1 episode on my list, which was actually pretty difficult to come up with because there's just so many good episodes of the show. But I chose season 2's episode number 4 or number 5, which is called The End of the World. And this one is kind of cliche in the sense of it's kind of cliche sci-fi. You have an older version of Max, which, now that I just rewatched it, it's actually set in 2014. He goes back to the year 2000, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm old when I watched that because the future was 2014, which was 5 years ago. So it was kind of a trippy little scenario now that I watch it. But he has to go back in time because he and Liz is, their relationship and everything, it has fallouts from it. Basically, he realizes that if he had never been with Liz, he had actually been with Tess instead, that they wouldn't be where they end up at in 2014, which is basically the end of the world. Their enemies have come. So he goes back in time and gets with Liz to the 2000 version of Liz to get her to make him not be in love with her anymore. And at this point in 2000, Max and Liz are not together. He is trying to get her back, but Liz is resisting because of everything they found out at the end of season 1 with the destinies and stuff like that. So, for Liz, it's very hard to do because she's just, she's deeply in love with Max. And so she has to set about making him want to not be in love with her. And the whole time, future Max is giving her hints and he's giving her little tidbits about what their life was like together. And so it's just absolute agony for Liz. And in this one, the acting is just really good. Cherie does a fantastic job with it. When she felt emotion, you just bought it. And there's a lot of really good scenes in this. But ultimately, Liz ends up faking sleeping with Kyle in order to make Max let go. Which, it didn't actually happen. They're just, they're just setting this up to make it look like it. But it's just devastating to Max. And, at the very end of it, the future Max is starting to fade because, 2000 Max is falling out of love with Liz because of everything that's happened. And there's just some really great scenes between them. And the very end of it just, rips your heart out because she wants to, she's with, after everything she's done to get Max to not be in love with her, she's devastated. And future Max is talking to her and, he's told her about their wedding and she wants to dance with him. She wants to have that wedding dance that she's never going to get. But so he dances with her and to I Shall Believe by Sheryl Crow. And I'm glad that they left this song in there. The scene would have been really weird without it. And then, he disappears because Max has fallen out of love with Liz and the future is different now. So she sacrificed this. And this episode has repercussions throughout the whole season 2. They go back and forth to this. Max wanting to know what really happened there. And like I said, it just really sets up the rest of the season. So I definitely rank this as number 1. I liked it when it aired. It's always been one that I've came back to and watched just because it's really, really good. So that is my top 5 for Roswell. It differs from, I'm sure, several other fans, but especially I think it's a lot of a preference on who you were a fan of in the series. Michael and Maria fans are going to have a different top 5. Alex and Isabel fans are going to have a different top 5. Mine tended to be because of Max and Liz, just because I liked them, and so that kind of colors my top 5. But all in all, I think it's a pretty solid 5 episodes for anybody who's interested in the series. I encourage you to go back and watch it. I watched it, those 5 episodes, I watched them on Hulu last night, and, I just love the series. It's just, to me, it stands up really well. It doesn't feel as dated, and I just really enjoy it, especially with the new series on right now. It's a good time to rewatch it. So I hope you guys liked this one. If you're interested in other top lists, I did one about Buffy. I'm going to do another one probably next weekend, maybe, give or take. They're just fun for me to do. Just leave a comment below if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see daily updates. I do this. I try to put out a daily video of a recap of something, and I'm really enjoying it. I appreciate everybody who has watched the videos, who has subscribed, and all the comments. It's been really fun talking with everybody. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Seth Reviews. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.